What's up, jobbers, and welcome to the latest edition of the Jobber Knocker podcast. As always, Nestlemania alongside for the ride is the man that created the SummerSlam jingle, JC. Excuse me.
SummerSlam. SummerSlam. You got Brock, Cody, Roman, Jay, and Seth and Rogan Paul, and we're having a good old time. Oh, Nestlemania. We're gonna get into SummerSlam because it was a show. It was an interesting show. Highs and lows. More lows than I think we're used to in terms of WWE PLEs the last year, but we'll get on all that up for sure.
So, full bias aside, I will put out there that JC and myself did watch this pay-per-view, PLE, together with our boy Ben. Ben opened our eyes to a couple of things as well. We'll probably discuss. But it's always weird when you and I sit and watch things together because I feel like we're kind of cheating on the podcast a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's also, we do still have different reactions to certain things. So, you know.
All right. Shall we get into the slam?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, there we go. First match out of the gate. Logan Paul defeats Ricochet by pinfall in a singles match. 18 minutes directly on the dot. I was surprised how long this went, considering we were told that he had to leave to catch a jet. But a lot of fun was had in this matchup. And I think Ricochet became even a bigger star because he was rubbing up. He was getting the Logan Paul rub, as we say. What were your thoughts?
It was one of those things. I think when we were watching it, we were kind of surprised that it was like more of like a traditional wrestling match. Like they were grappling, they were doing things. Like you said, it was given time, which I don't think we really expected. I think we expected like a crazy spot fest, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was these two guys. They still had their high points throughout the match. But as we were watching it, I didn't expect it to be my second favorite match of SummerSlam once the card ended, because I didn't think it was that amazing. But I mean, we're going to get to the rest of it. I do think that this was probably number 2 on my list in terms of matches on the card.
Well, I was just surprised because you knew the athleticism of Ricochet. You knew the athleticism of, obviously, Logan Paul. But there was a lot more. I think Logan Paul, with every outing, gets a little bit more comfortable with what he's doing. And you can start. This is the first time where I felt like he stopped and he played with the crowd a little bit more. And I think that's what his 5th match. You know what I mean? And you're looking at it like and they always say, if you don't end the pay-per-view or the show, you want to start the show. So that's the best spot besides, the end. And I like to think about, this guy's in such a great spot. He's doing great work. He's doing the Hogan, the ear, and then he does an athletic leg drop, and he's doing all these flips. He did the buckshot layer to the outside. He just does so much. And even that springboard frog splash, I thought to myself, like, wow, this dude is just on another level comparatively to everybody else. And I would say 70% of the roster he's better than. At least that's what I would say already in his 5th match.
Yeah, that's always a hard thing to say because it's different, but obviously like his star power and his natural ability and his natural just like heelisms that, like you said, he is finally starting to fully embrace and get more comfortable out there for sure. But I will say I am curious because we did watch it together and we kind of talked about it a little bit, but the ending of this match kind of felt like a cop-out. I don't hate it that much though, because Logan Paul, like we said, like really digging into his roots, using brass knucks and cheating, like that's a heel thing to do. It leaves open the door for these two to potentially have another rematch later on down the line, which I think we'd be okay with, because I think the part 2 would be even more interesting, because I think these are two guys that would look to make the match even more like different and complex. So I didn't mind that, and I think we agreed going in. We talked about it on predictions last week that Logan really did kind of need a win, because he's faced like the cream of the crop the last few and taken L's. So this was a nice spot to get him a nice cheap win to kind of get some momentum for him.
I am curious to see when he pops up again. I would assume Saudi, but who the hell knows at this point? But
he might have a boxing match in October, I believe. So we might not see him till the Rumble.
wow, okay. I did not know that. I didn't know he had a boxing match. So
he just announced it today, I believe. So
do we know who he's against?
Dylan Dennis.
I don't know who that is. Is that a big deal?
Yeah, it's a big deal for the internet.
I don't know what that means. Like, is he a boxer, or is he like a celebrity?
No, let me put it this way: Logan Paul is 0-1 as a boxer. Dylan Dennis is 0-0 as a boxer.
Okay, so nobody knows him. All right, fair enough. Moving on, we get to
he's a mixed martial artist.
Sure, we get to the Cody Rhodes defeats Brock Lesnar by pinfall, 17 minutes and 35 seconds. I gotta tell you, we were sitting with our boy Ben, and all I kept saying was, "It's not going to be 8 minutes. It's going to be shorter. It's going to be shorter." And it just kept getting longer and longer and longer, and I was just shocked how long this match went. And they were milking it with the count-out stuff. To me, that was like, I know they're telling the story of like Rocky, like stay down, and he kept fighting and he kept fighting, and he super seen it a couple times at 9 and all that stuff. But it was like, and Joe, you're right. Is this a record time for? Is that time a record for Brock? I think so. In the grand scheme of things. What?
You said record.
I'm sorry. I am so tired. You have no idea. I've got like 6 hours of sleep, like cumulative this week. I'm dragging my ass, trying to give you whatever I can. But it was so fascinating to me that this kept going, because we know he's like never done 10 minutes. It seems like ever in the time he's been back.
It's been apparent, and I think it's been apparent in this feud of that how much Brock likes and respects Cody. I don't know if there's a relationship where he kind of knew him like as a kid and he loves seeing what he's doing, but we do know one thing, that Brock really does appreciate the wrestling industry. Like, we hear some stories here and there, but he does kind of mostly keep to himself, but we hear things about it. And I mean, he's probably seen this Cody story and is like happy to be a part of it. But like, I mean, it was even after the match. We'll get to that in a minute. But like, Brock has gone out of his way in this entire feud to do whatever he can to continue to push Cody up, prop him up as much as possible. This was my favorite match of the card. Which, as it happened, I was thinking that, oh man, I don't know if this will be my favorite when the show's all said and done, but we're gonna get to it soon. But there was a big gap in this pay-per-view where it was the drizzling shits, as we'd say. But to me, this was the high point. I thought the storytelling was good. I know you weren't big on the count out stuff, but I'm all about the story, man. So I was fine with it. I thought there was enough technical stuff in there too. There were callbacks. Cody got the definitive one he needed. And then after the match, I loved it and you did not love it. This is where we differed and we got into it a little bit, is that the Brock showing Cody respect. I kind of love that because, and I think it was even more apparent, I loved it even more once Triple H revealed that this wasn't planned. Brock just did it. So it's like, he's like, I don't know why he did it. He just did it. And even before Triple H got up there, Cody was kind of up there and he was just kind of like reflecting on it, like in the moment, being like, it was really cool. Cause he's like, Brock, I don't think Brock's ever done that. So he's like, it really was a special moment. You could like see it in his eyes of like him realizing like, oh wow, that was pretty cool. So when Triple H giving us more of the facts, I thought it was awesome. But I just saw it again. It was like, Brock loves this kid for whatever reason. He has an attachment to Cody. And I kind of liked it because it was something different. And I think it's important that if someone like Brock, who has never done this before, he's never just shown respect to someone after a match, the fact that he did it here, I just think it's cool. And I thought everything about this was cool. I thought it was a good way to end this feud because a lot of the times, by the time you get to the third match, it can be like kind of fatigued. But with the little Dom break they had in the middle at Money in the Bank and stuff, I thought this one was paced well. And I thought it was a fitting end to a pretty good feud.
Just want to say what's up to the broadcast. They're into what's up. We're happy to have you. So here's my thing, and I'll expand upon what you did at the end of the match there. But I will say this match, the one thing about the match that really bothered me was that in the middle of the match, They used a steel chair, or they used the steel steps, and they didn't call it DQ. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck are we doing here? Clearly,
Well, it
Cody
was
had to
kind
win,
of
but
like
it was weird. It was
it was
definitely
kind of like
bizarre.
they tried to use them, but they weren't used correctly. So I'm okay with the ref letting them.
It was no, but the thing is
it's one of
here's the
those
thing.
where it's like he could call a ticky tack foul, but like let's let him play. Come on,
No, I'm
let's
just
let
saying,
him play,
it literally in your mind, Cody can do no wrong. So it was just like, it was just. It
Oh
was
no,
like
he definitely
glaring.
can.
I don't see. I don't. When's the last time you've been critical of Cody though?
When's the last time Cody did something that deserves criticism?
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. Is
No,
can you be critical? Can you be critical?
Of course, like in Nestlemania, there was a couple months ago where he wasn't really doing much. Where I was just kind of like, he's just kind of coming out here doing the same thing. Like it's not. There's nothing special to it. Like I barely even brought it up in the show because there was nothing to say. But I mean, look at the reactions this guy is getting everywhere he goes and everything he does. Like he's the best thing in wrestling. He's the most interesting thing in wrestling. He's one of the better baby faces we've seen in a very, very long time in an era where it's so hard to be an effective baby face. Like there's nothing to be critical of.
Okay, that's fine. I think the only reason I got so pissed off was the handshake was because I loved Cowboy Brock. So it felt odd to me. This whole feud was very odd. It was like we didn't get a reason for why Brock Lesnar had turned on him. We never got that answer. And then we never got anything out of it. And then it was just like handshake. Now I'm going to go put on a hat from, the kid in the crowd and just be good old Brock. And it was just like, what are we doing here? Like, was he just like, I just felt like you're going to say it's Brock and Cody and it's amazing. We get that. But like, it just felt like we're forgiving it because of the people involved sometimes. And although it was probably the best match of the card. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And it was a great match. But for me, I look at it from a storytelling standpoint. We never got Brock to admit why he was pissed. You know what I mean?
But
we never got anything.
We also saw the same guy do after the match whatever he wanted and just thank someone. Like that's Brock Lesnar his whole career. He does whatever the fucks he wants. Like he comes out, randomly attacks John Cena for no reason. It's just like that's what Brock does. Brock is an animal. He is a beast incarnate, as we call him. He goes out and he does what he wants. He sees the biggest guy in the room and he wants to take him down. There's something he's done. Would I have loved a reason from Brock? Of course I would, but it's one of those things like, and I think like, obviously we have to come on and we have to fill an hour podcast every week and get ticky tack. But sometimes Nestlemania, when something is just good and the performers are good and the performers do a good job and it's entertaining. And like you said, it's the top thing on the show. Who cares? It was entertaining. At the end of the day, that's why we're watching, right? Like, not everything's going to make sense. At the end of the day, these are human beings. These are human beings putting this together for whatever. Like, there's always going to be holes. And there's some things like, yes, we can poke holes in, and we're going to get that on this card. But something like this was just good, dude. It's just good.
The Joe Stopper says, last time G Sizzle was critical of Cody was during his AEW run when he wouldn't go heel.
That's the last time Cody did something wrong. So that would make sense.
Well, tearing his pec while lifting a little bit of weight might be the last thing he did wrong, but that's beside the point.
I mean, that's
anyway,
an injury. That's a fluke injury.
Fluke, yeah. Anyway, LA Knight wins the Battle Royal Eliminating Chamber. 25-man Battle Royal, 11 minutes, 55 seconds. We both picked incorrectly on this one. However, it was very entertaining, and the guy had nuclear responses from the win and as well as the beginning of the match. The crowd was just ridiculous. And then, of course, directly after, we got the Slim Jim ad with Bianca and LA Knight, which I thought was really cool. And, that's a good sign between what happened on Sunday, what happened on Saturday, what happened on Monday. This guy is, organically just growing in front of our eyes anyway, but they're recognizing this guy is he's something else. He really is something else. So I'm starting to get on the bandwagon of like, give this guy a shot, right? Like, let's see what happens. Because honestly, we've given everybody else a shot that probably didn't deserve it. And the crowd will get behind this guy. And I don't think he'll waver either way, whether he gets booed, cheered, or just there's crickets. He'll just keep on moving.
I mean, yeah, there's not much to say here. I was very happy that they actually pulled the trigger. I think last week we've seen WWE so many times, like not capitalize on how people were just like, let's just pick someone else. That was in the theory, but they made the right call here. He got the win. He got the Slim Jim thing, yada, yada. It was a fine, entertaining thing. Like you said, nothing special, but it was entertaining. But after this, from the moment that LA Knight left the ring to about a certain someone running out with a green briefcase later in the night, a female, it was the drizzling shits. So shall we get into that stuff? I know you love bad stuff.
I do. So Shayna Baszler defeats Ronda Rousey by technical submission, although some people had said she had tapped out. Some people had said she had fallen asleep in 7 minutes. 7 minutes and 30 seconds on the dot. Now, we were on this program saying we wanted a knockout, not a tap out. We knew that was probably not going to happen. But this match, whether you saw what happened with the mass exodus on Twitter, with the people going to the bathroom, or you can talk about whatever you want, it is very hard for people to care about a submission. We've talked about this. It's really hard when those two aren't really doing something to captivate the crowd. And you, specifically, JC, we were watching side by side UFC and WWE with that Saturday night fight. And you made a great point about submissions in general. And I think it bears repeating right now.
Yeah, so my big thing, obviously, I'm a UFC fan. I mean, some of our audience isn't, but the big things with like submissions, when you're doing real submissions, like when you're watching a UFC fight, the struggle isn't the person in the submission. Because once you get in the submission, you're done. Like you have to tap. Like you're in an armbar. If you don't tap, your shoulder's coming out. You're in a Kimura, same thing. You're being choked out. You're going to be asleep. The difference between like real UFC submissions and WWE submissions is the beauty of UFC is watching these men and women scramble on the ground, trying to lock in the submission, or maybe it's close. Like the guy has it around his neck, but it's not fully locked in. And any little shift of motion can either lock it in or slip it out. So the struggle is more about getting in and out of the submission. Whereas in WWE, a lot of it, like, and this is I'm not a big fan of wrestling submissions, is they treat them like a rest move where it's like, oh, this guy's just in a submission and he's going to sit here for 2 minutes and not tap. And it's just like, it's one of those, again, it's for the drama and that's easier to understand. But what I mean, if we're just watching them side by side, it kind of brings it out. It's like you're watching people really struggle in submission versus people in a submission. It's just, I don't know, it's tougher. And I will say, because there was points of this match where Ronda and Shayna were kind of playing into that. Granted, they were both UFC fighters. They were playing into the fact of like there was struggle to get in and out of the submissions before they were actually fully locked in. But I mean, my criticism has always been with submissions of more of like that other end. But in this match, I thought they did a better job of it. But overall, I mean, this match, we knew it wasn't going to be that interesting. It wasn't that interesting. Shayna got the win. Ronda's out. That's what at the end of the day. But it just like, this was a tough watch. And I'm shocked that it was 7:30 because it felt way longer than that.
So let me bring up an interesting point. And again, this might be small potatoes here, but I'm just curious, both of us from a production standpoint, where when you watch UFC, the camera people are up on a lift or a pedestal or some, like shooting over the cage, looking down most of the time, right? But wrestling is near the apron on the low, shooting directly either in or underneath. And I'm wondering sometimes if you miss the detail of a struggle in WWE versus UFC, where you can physically get on top of these people from a camera angle and see the struggle, if that does anything to the viewer at home.
It could, but I think it's just like with WWE, the submission is just like if you're in an ankle lock, you're putting an ankle lock. You know what I mean? It's not like there are some people, like obviously the really good ones, like Joe in the chat brought up like Kurt Angle and stuff, like, and we see Chad Gable do it too. Like the working to get in and out. I'm not saying it doesn't exist in wrestling because it does, but I just think like most submissions, people is basically like, oh, we'll just slip in a headlock here to just kind of like catch our breath, which again is fine in a wrestling match. Like they don't have their breaks between rounds and this and that. So you need to work in ways to get yourself rest during the match to maintain your cardio. But it's to me, that's why I've never am interested really in submissions that often, because I'm just looking at it, it's like, Cody's been in this Kimura for 10 minutes. His arm would be snapped out of his fucking socket and he would be passed out from pain. He wouldn't be able to survive that. Like it takes me out of it. And that's something that, obviously, if you don't watch MMA or whatever, then it's not going to bother you as much. And obviously, the drama of it is like, oh my God, will this guy tap? Blah blah blah. But I don't know. It's at the end of the day, it's not interesting in general. And with that, making it even less realistic, it just makes it tough.
Let me ask you this: because you like UFC, would you be more into the idea of an actual knockout in WWE, like if it was stopped by knockout? Because they do that.
They do that sometimes. Like that's like Logan Paul's big thing. Like that was Big Show's like finish. Like, I mean, it's a thing, but wrestling should stick to what wrestling is. I think we talked about it leading into the program. We talked about it on Saturday to make this Ronda Shayna thing. If you're really going to go in with this MMA rules bullshit, they should have put him in a fucking cage. It's the one time I want a fucking cage. That would have made sense. Watching this like fake MMA fight in a wrestling ring, not in a cage, just made no fucking sense.
Well, Ronda's ship has sailed. We can talk about that another day. But the now the baddest chick on the planet is now got a black eye on Raw. Moving on, Gunther taking on Drew McIntyre with a pinfall victory, a singles match for the Intercontinental Championship, 13 minutes, 40 seconds. Again, hard hitting, great. These guys do a hard hitting matchup. To me, I wasn't overly impressed. I know if Danny was here, he'd say I'm a Brit shamer anyway, or a Scott shamer or whatever. But I think we're at a point now where I want to see something else. And I think Gable's what I want to see. So I'm very excited with that. But that's
Yeah. My problem with this wasn't that. My problem with this is that but my big thing, and the reason why we're going to sound pretty critical of SummerSlam here, is like, I think the bar has been raised for WWE PLEs in the Triple H era, especially the last year. We've seen pretty much everyone he's put on deliver and over deliver, kind of like the NXT ones always did. And SummerSlam is supposed to be your second biggest show of the year. And for the most part, this card came up super flat. So it sounds like we're being super critical. That's the reason. It's just the bar is raised. And this Gunther Drew match, there's nothing wrong with it. It certainly was not a bad match. It was a fine match. This match was on TV. Yeah, it'd be great. Oh, great TV match. The problem is we're at the second biggest show of the year. We're in a PLE, and you have a guy in Gunther who has been one of the most consistent performers of the last year, and Drew McIntyre, who is one of the top guys they have. I expected a lot more. It wasn't there. This was probably Gunther's most boring match in like a year. And yeah, it wasn't the performance I was looking for out of these two. Again, wasn't a bad match, but man, we talk about like the competition of getting on this card and the things that were left off and people fucking making lemonade because they're upset. If you're on the card, you got to deliver. And this was just,
So I wanted to bring this up very quickly. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of people, bitching at me and whatnot, but, I feel like although Gunther has been a fantastic, in-ring competitor, I haven't seen a lot of moments that I'll remember for the rest of my life with him. And I'm like,
the Royal Rumble,
but that's it. Like he did a great job in the Royal Rumble.
The Sheamus match.
Okay. Sheamus, you're right. So those
are the top two for sure.
But I feel like for a man that's been having these amazing matches, I feel like I'm forgetting all of them. And I don't think that that's good because he's actually like in line to be the next guy in some form or fashion. So it's weird, I don't know. It's bizarre to me.
I just the way I look at it with him is I think pretty much every match he's in pretty much delivers. Like even this one, like again, this wasn't a bad match. It's just in terms of like what I expect in Gunther matches, this may have been his worst one in a year. And again, that doesn't make it a bad match. It's more of like the consistent force that he has become. It's one of those things like you're not going to remember everything, but I think those two big moments really stand out and kind of highlight the year he's had. He's obviously not done. We expect him to break that record. I would say that Gable will probably beat him after that because if Gunther isn't world champion going into WrestleMania, I think he's the favorite to win the Rumble, assuming Cody doesn't repeat. I think they'd probably find a different way for Cody to get there this year.
I think they said they'll make Cody win the Elimination Chamber if that's a thing.
That would make sense. Yeah. So that would make sense because I do think that Gunther Royal Rumble makes a lot of sense to me because a lot of the times we see it, the person who was super highlighted the year before, we've seen it with Roman and Shayna and many others, they win it the next year. So we'll see.
I don't know. I feel like for a guy that's been, touted as like the biggest deal, I feel like I'm a moment guy, right? Like I don't remember matches as much as like the moments. Like even on this card, I'm thinking to myself, I'll remember the handshake from Cody and Brock. I remember the cash in from EO. There are certain things that stick out.
I remember Jey Uso pumping up the crowd.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Like that. Yeah. But like there are moments, but there are other things like everything else could just fly right past there.
Yeah, but I will say in Gunther's defense here is that the two that I named are like two moments that like most people just never get. Like those are like top tier moments, like the Rumble Iron Man and the distance that he went. And then obviously that Sheamus match is an all timer that I'll probably never forget. And he's certainly like, even before he came to the main roster, especially next to UK, like his matches with Dragunov and JD McDonough and Tyler Bate, like these are absolute classics that if people haven't seen, then go watch. Like this guy's not done making moments. Again, he's a mid-card champion when there's like 15 main roster champions. So the fact that he's a guy that's pretty much on every PLE, I think says a lot about him because he is one of the most consistent guys they got.
Moving on, Seth freaking Rollins defeats Finn Balor. 18 minutes, 30 seconds on the dot. I will say this much. I think you and I had this conversation while we were watching, but this is bearing repeating here. I thought this was very pedestrian, felt very just generic to me watching this matchup. I know Danny's going to hate that we, are critical of Seth Rollins. But again, a guy who is clearly the workhorse, has great matches, has, the psychology down, and is such a great human being, I'm sure, left and right. But this reign is very odd to me in that and then we'll talk about it more about what happened on Monday. I'm just not sold on the idea that he is going to make this title mean anything.
This was my biggest disappointment of the night. Because when you get guys like Seth Rollins and Finn Balor, who I think they're two of the best in the world, Finn Balor is one of my favorites. It could not hold my attention. The entire match, I was just screaming for Dom and Rhea to run out to make it interesting. Because like you said, like this was pedestrian. Like this is supposed to be like the rematch. You're supposed to take it up a level, and they've done it. This was my concern. Like leading in, I kind of like was shitting on this being the SummerSlam match because like they just did the other one. A rematch like this, I felt like, I don't know, they needed something extra with it because I just wasn't excited for it. The only way I probably would have really grabbed my attention is if Finn would have got the win. But obviously they weren't doing that. We didn't even get a Priest cash in. We just pretty much what they did is the same thing they did at the last PLE where Finn and Damian Priest like get mad at each other and whatever, and Seth slinks away. And that's the other thing. It's just like, you're talking about making a dominant champion. I agree. First of all, it's hard to be a babyface champion. I'll always acknowledge that. But this just, I don't know. Seth just weaseling out of wins because of dysfunction from other people doesn't make him look strong either. His next feud, I mean, we'll get to that, but it's just one of those things like it just, I don't know. This is my biggest disappointment on the card. I wanted more. We didn't get it. It was pedestrian. It was fairly boring. They didn't give us anything at the end. It was a letdown for sure.
The Joe Stopper says, as great as they are, Rollins and Balor wrestle similarly to create the audience's interest or keep the audience interest.
That is a great point by Joe, because Nestlemania, I ask you, what is my least favorite move in wrestling?
Sling Blade.
Who are the two wrestlers that do the Sling Blade?
Sling Blade. They do it.
Rollins and Balor. Yeah. No, Joe, that is a great point because we talk about it all the time. Styles make fights, and these guys, like you said, are very similar. That is a great point. But my only counter to that is we've seen them do greatness in the past. So again, expectations are been risen for WWE PLEs. This is your number 2 show of the year. Everything on this card better be banging because it was competitive to get on this card. So when you give me back-to-back things with like good performers under delivering, big disappointment.
Moving on, Bianca Belair defeats Asuka, the champion, and Charlotte Flair by pinfall, 20 minutes, 45 seconds in a triple threat match for the women's championship. Now, I'm going to just go out on a limb here and say when we watched this was Sandbag and City. This was terrible.
Bad match.
This was people just not being in the triple threat matches in general, like structuring them are very difficult. A meets B, B then B and C, and we throw out A, and then A comes back in and A versus C, and then maybe double teams here and there, and these spots and this spot. It got too convoluted. We had too many things going on. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say if Charlotte Flair knows she's not winning, or she's not motivated properly, she's kind of like that early Randy Orton, where it was like, if he's not motivated, get the fuck out of the way. You know what I mean? But when she's motivated, there's nobody better than her. But the consistency of it bothers me because we all know, not just me, we all know how great she is. So when she does stuff like this, where it's just like, whatever that first, like, she does like a front flip clothesline into a turnbuckle, and it's just like, there's no impact to it. And like, we know Bianca's going to give everything she's got. We know Asuka tries, but I think like the longer I've watched Asuka, I think Asuka falls into the similar category of, like a Samoa Joe or a Shayna Baszler, where it's just like, theoretically her character is really cool and she's cool and her moves are cool. But then it's just like, depending on who she's working with, I don't know if the style works. And this was a glaring issue for me watching it, was like Charlotte didn't put her best foot forward. Asuka's style doesn't necessarily match with everybody. And then Bianca's got to pick up the slack. And of course she wins, which was great for her. But it's just, I didn't like this at all. I felt like it just felt like people going through the motions. And again, you said, tough to get on this card. You better put your best foot forward. And I don't think 3 of these women did it.
Yeah, it was sloppy. And I know you're going to put a heavy on Charlotte, and that's the easy thing to do. I'm putting it on 3 of them. I even think this was one of the most poor Bianca performances I've seen in a long time. And the thing with Asuka, like, I think it's a good point because I don't disagree with it, but we've also seen Asuka versus Charlotte and Asuka versus Bianca, and those have been great matches singles wise. So I don't think it was a chemistry thing here. I think it was, they tried to do a lot. I thought it was rushed. It just, for whatever reason, all 3 of them just weren't on the same page. This was the point that where we're going to shout out our boy Ben. Me and you got. with the Bianca injury. We thought it was real. And Ben was like, no, it's not. We were like, oh my God, it is. No, not Bianca, blah, blah. And I mean, Ben was right. It was obviously part of the angle to get her the win. And then you could get the cash in with Io. But I mean, this was a disaster until Io ran out with that briefcase.
So let's make this point very clear. So Ben was smarter than us on that particular occasion because we were like, oh, she grabbed the right leg and then she rolled back in. And what leg did she grab?
The left leg.
She grabbed the left leg and we went, God damn it. She fucking got us. Like, Jesus Christ. And she switched the leg. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, first off, that made me laugh. But secondly, like, you're a professional. You should probably remember what leg you hurt. But that's beside the point.
Hey, her acting job. I know
she did a great job. She
did. In terms of that, the fact that she made us believe, the two fucking us two, like bravo, like that was an Academy Award winning performance. But yeah, I mean, look, the highlight here is that Io came out and she cashed in on an injured Bianca. She is your new, what is this
women's
title
world
again?
Women's champion.
No, women's. She is the world. This is the non-world champion. The non-world champion. The champion that is the women. The
she's the champion of women.
Yes. Okay. So very confusing. I'm just going to call it the SmackDown Women's Championship. So that was awesome. It was obviously a cool moment. We love Io. We've been big Io guys on this program since day one. So that was awesome to see. We also got Dakota Kai returning there. So Damage Control is reunited. They're now a champion. So now we have the dynamic with Bayley as well, who is all buddy right now, but I would expect a little bit of, animosity going forward there. So I think we're happy with that because we got that moment, but man, it was just everything from, and this is something that we didn't mention yet that I thought was superb. The way they finished the match and Bianca winning, because I believe my quote was, everything from when LA Knight left the ring to Asuka misting Charlotte was crap.
Yeah.
But the ending of the match, the creativity with Asuka doing Charlotte and then Bianca getting the win, I thought the ending was A+. So whoever came up with it, the execution, that part of the match was A+, which probably, if you saw my flame ratings, probably lifted an entire flame from 1 to 2.
So we're moving on to the main event here. It's Jey Uso challenging Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns beats him in 36 minutes and 5 seconds. Becoming the tribal chief again and the universal champion or whatever, yada, yada, yada. I am confused on this. I saw this on Twitter, and I guess it's a good discussion point here where tribal combat was supposed to have no interference. This thing was loaded with interference and nonsense. And of course, we're hearing from the dirty dirts that Roman Reigns is hurt, and that's probably not going to screw up his schedule anyway, because he's going to be gone for
he's not going to be back till
yeah. So it doesn't really matter. But it's just so it's funny. I'm not saying that it's jumping the shark or leaping the dolphin per se, but I'm a little fatigued in that I just don't know if I'm going to get excited for anything with, like, if we get to a point where it's like Jay versus Jimmy versus Solo versus Roman in a fatal 4-way match. If we ever get to that part, I can't. I don't care enough about all 4 of these people anymore in terms of them like fighting for a position or jockeying for a position. And at this point, and I think this is just me being me, but if Jey Uso, besides Sami Zayn and Cody Rhodes, were the best case scenario for taking the title off of Roman Reigns, Jey Uso might have been the guy to do it in a lot of people's minds. And if he's not going to do it, then what are we doing here? Like, let's just
he was never going to do it.
No, but I'm saying,
I'm a tag team specialist here who's an amazing wrestler and had a really good solo run when his brother was out. He's not the face of the company. And I love Jey Uso. Like I mentioned off the top, one of the coolest images ever in SummerSlam was him pumping up the crowd. Like that was a fucking amazing shot. It was beautiful, but I'm not going to pull punches like you did there. This match was incredibly mediocre. It was the most boring Roman Reigns match in years. Maybe it was because he was hurt, or maybe it's just that I don't know. It just wasn't good. It was fine. I think I gave it 3 flames. So yeah, it's a fine match. That was a TV match. It'd be a good main event. But guess what? This is the main event of your second biggest show of the year. The bar is raised. This wasn't good. It wasn't that entertaining. We got bored throughout of it. There were little pieces that were good because we know Roman's always good. And then to me, I'm not pulling punches here either. The decision to have Jimmy cross his brother, fuck off. We just went through all this bullshit for them to emancipate from the tribal cuck, and that the fucking one of the moments of the year of them fucking the super kicks and this and that. This is what we do. Now, maybe they can pull me back in Friday with a worthy explanation. Probably not. But this, you hinted at it. This shit may have left the Dolphin. We'll see. I got to let it play out a little more here to see where they go next. But at this point, it just feels like, oh, Roman's going away for a few months. Let's have the Usos feud with each other. I don't know.
I don't think, and it's no gripe against either of the Usos. It's just, I don't think that statistically or demographically that the ratings will go steady with that being the main feud. I'm just not, I mean, again, I can be proven wrong every day. Normally I am. I'm wrong every single moment, but it just feels like these two can't hold on to what has been built. And I'm not interested in them being a main event of a PLE. I'm just not.
I mean, without Roman Reigns, I don't think they're main event of a PLE. It'll be Cody or the woman or Seth or whatever. And like, you know what? The Usos have hinted at this. They'd love to feud each other someday. That's fine. Maybe this is the right time. But it's one of those things that just like, I didn't like this ending. I thought it was lame because, like I said, we just went through this struggle of them emancipating from it and whatever. And this is just like, I don't know. We're going to get an explanation on like the Brock thing, but it's just like, I don't know if I'm going to like it. It's just one of those things where look back at WrestleMania and I just got to say, I told you so. Like, it's I don't know. It's tough. And they're in a tough position now. The Usos are amazing. Jay's super over. I love both these guys. I love Solo. I'm going to watch on Fridays. I'm not going to stop watching. These guys are great. But man, I had a very sour taste in my mouth after this because the match under-delivered and I thought the ending was lame.
So as we tie this up here, roll it up. It's to me, what's the matter? Free flipper
comment. I just read it. Yeah.
I would say this is a 4.5 or a 5 for SummerSlam for me.
Out of 10?
Out of 10.
I'll go 5.5 because I don't like being negative, and there was enough there. But I mean, that's in terms of like what I normally would rate things. Like that's fucking low. Because again, like the things that we shit on, like they weren't objectively bad. It's just the bar has risen. I can't say that enough. I'm going to continue to hammer that. And the last thing I want to hit on before we leave SummerSlam is I do want to get. I don't know if I'm assuming you watched the pressers. I did. Triple H got a little snippy with some reporters because they were kind of going at him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, she's like, whatever. We don't even need to mention his name again. But they're really adamant about like, why is Theory in the Battle Royal? And Triple H goes, to win it. He's like, well, he's the U.S. champion. And like, it's one of those things. And it's the same thing. He referenced Becky's Lemons post. And it's the thing that I've been preaching to everyone where Triple H's focus since he has taken over. And this was the same thing he did of the NXT PLEs, quality over quantity. And more often than not, that is a better show. Instead of jamming in a Becky Trish match, which would have been 5 minutes max and would have been shit and forgotten, and we'd be laughing about how bad it was. They're probably going to main event Raw next week or be one of the focal things on Raw next week. So it just, again, in theory, Santos, they're going to get way more time on SmackDown than they would have gotten SummerSlam. So it's one of those things like, just cut the shit, guys, because you want to be fucking watching a 6-hour SummerSlam being like, oh my God, this is so annoying. I can't believe they're making me stay up this late. Where? You just can't be fucking happy. This is better. Fuck off, grow up, and deal with it. Not all your favorites are going to be on every PLE. They are going to be spread out so everyone gets opportunities at different times. The cream of the cream will be on the PLEs. And you want to get there? Well, you got to work harder. It's that fucking simple because the days, but he said it perfectly. We have enough top tier talent to fill 2 nights of WrestleMania and make it really good. So the rest of the year where we're doing 1 night and shorter shows, there's going to be people left off. Get over it.
And our boy, the Backcracker, says, is Nestle the Britt Baker of the Knocker? Well, I guess I'm easy on the eyes.
He's not that entertaining.
I'm easy on the eyes if you ask my brother, so that's pretty much it. But that's beside the point. We should get into the regular part of the program because God knows we spent 40 minutes talking about fucking SummerSlam. I did not expect that. Most of SmackDown obviously is kind of null and void considering that we had to deal with, SummerSlam.
I don't remember anything on SmackDown, so.
Anyway, do you want to get hopeful? I mean, not hopeful. Do you want to like shine?
I would like to get to the shine Nestlemania. Yeah, no, we can definitely get here to the shine. I think there's only one way to start, and they had a fatal 4-way with 4 of the top baby faces on Raw, 4 of the best in-ring competitors. It was in Minnesota, the hometown of Chad Gable. Thank you, new #1 contender for the Intercontinental title, but Nestlemania. Oh boy, that match was steamy. That match was hot. Dare I say that match was super hot fire? And if it was on SummerSlam, would have been the match of the night, baby.
That triple German, when I saw that,
Oh my
all I could
god.
think about was all I could think about when I saw that was how many people on the indie circuit are gonna try to do that or outdo it and fucking hurt each other. And I was just like, Jesus Christ. And then the finish was great with trying to do Chaos Theory and like couldn't do it. Then Chaos Theory again, couldn't do it. Then he
That was
finally
cool.
got it. That was a cool thing. And then again, as a dad, seeing him run around with his kid, like that always touches my heart. And I start to cry a little bit because I'm a softie. But it was just like so cool to see that. And like in his hometown, they even did a thank you, like he did, and the crowd said a thank you. And it makes you wonder when he's gonna cash in that moment. I imagine they're gonna blow their load and do it before the Honky Tonk Man record, so he won't win. But I
Mm,
kind of hope they wait a little while because I just so anyway. I'm gonna add this as part of like jumping off of this, if you don't mind, because I think this was a positive.
I hope you're doing what you think I'm doing because I was gonna do the same thing.
Okay, so then backstage, there's a segment with Maxine
Yes.
and Ludwig, and I was just like, we all know what Ludwig is doing, behind his closed doors in his bedroom, who he's doing. But then, like the fact, like all I could think about was like how fucking disgusting he is while he's like talking to her. And then Otis comes in and he goes, "Why don't you have a problem with me?" Like he just, whatever. And then they have this fucking match, and all
Hey,
I
guess who
can,
won? Second week in a row.
I know, but
Winning streak for Ludwig.
all I could think about was he was shaking his dick at Maxine. Like he was basically shaking his dick at her and being like, like doing this whole thing. And I was just laughing hysterically. Like, this is perfect. This is perfect. You know what I mean? When he's like slimy and arrogant and cocky. It was so good. It was just like, it was a nothing thing, but they built off of something that was Chad Gable and, Gunther. And then, okay, the other two guys are going to continue doing something. And I just thought, what an easy slam dunk this was. And it made perfect sense. And it basically took zero effort. And it was great on all accounts.
Yeah, it was good TV. Like you said, the in-ring stuff was great. The backstage stuff might have been even better. It just like it's working. Alpha Academy and Imperium crossing paths. It makes sense. We're gonna get a banner of an IC title match, but I'm glad you included the Ludwig Maxine stuff because I mean we're talking about two of my favorite people on the roster, two of the most attractive people on the roster too. But this was great. This was the highlight of this was Raw. I will be honest. This was one of my favorite Raws in a very long time. But this stuff was probably the creme de la creme.
I don't disagree. Is there anything else that you really, really enjoyed?
Yeah. Top of the hour. Yeah. With the Miz. Yeah. I don't give a shit if he's on the other show. We know the draft don't mean shit. That's annoying. We could easily put that in the heat. But this shit's too good to fucking go in the heat because this is what I've been waiting for with LA Knight. It's like, when are they going to give him the feud that is going to, yeah. This is it. It's the Miz. Who do you call when you want to get someone over? You call the fucking Miz. Who do you put out there on the mic if you want to get someone to go from here to yeah? You do the fucking Miz. And boy, did this deliver. The Miz Corbin tweeted it. Best ever on the mic. It probably is the Miz. I'm gonna be a little biased, but if it isn't, he's right. He's right fucking there. But this was great. LA Knight for the most part held his own. I thought this was good. Their match will probably be good because the Miz just is good at making people look good. So this was A tier to me as well.
The fact that he stumbled and the crowd started, like three people started chanting the Miz and be like, "Oh, you gained a couple." I just
that was good.
What a great save!
Way to bounce back.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that like you have like both of them stumbled because they were so into it, but they still got into it, which was great. The only thing I would say is like the one thing that was very apparent to me was like when he said that line, like you were allowed, in the locker room and you did this and you did that because they knew you were pushover. They could push you around. They could beat you up. I don't take shit. I'm a very dangerous man. And I went, boom, there we go. After the races, I'm cool with it. And it was an all-timer. It really was an all-timer for both of them, I think, because we sometimes forget how big the Miz can be in a moment like that. Like he can really do it. But this was a good reminder of how great the Miz was. And he doesn't have to wrestle. He's just the Miz. You know what I mean? And great mouthpiece in general for anybody that wants him to be. But then LA Knight, with the Yaz and everything. It just worked. He even made the joke about being an attitude ripoff. And like it's like any naysayers for LA Knight need to watch that and go, okay, this guy has obviously
LA Knight naysayers? I don't think so. I haven't seen him.
I think there's a small contingent of people that think that LA Knight is too
People
old
who are
or
being
not
hipster to
good
be
enough
hipster.
wrestler
Yeah.
or like, all this stuff. But like we've talked about in this program, you don't need to be a good wrestler to be over. You don't. You need to have a connection. So, and I mean, whether the Miz has a negative connection with the crowd and LA Knight has a positive connection with the crowd, that just shows you when two people meet, it's when a hurricane meets a tornado. It fucking works, man. So I'm excited for it. I hope this is where I get nervous. I hope that it's not on a Monday Night Raw or a SmackDown. I hope it's a PLE, but we'll see.
This will get treatment, I think. This will get treatment. Like, it's when you tag in the Miz for something like this, it gets treatment. So I'm confident they will. The next thing I do want to bring up is actually more of a note, but that is the change in the commentary. Michael Cole and Wade Barrett on Monday Night Raw was a breath of fresh air. Everything I thought was just flowed so much better. Everything was called so much better. Hell, it might have been a reason why everything felt better. And this is my favorite Raw in forever. I don't think that we can overlook that of how good it is. And obviously we know, like, for those of you that don't know, it's Michael Cole and Wade Barrett on Raw. SmackDown is Michael Cole with Graves and KP. So Michael Cole will be the voice of WWE, period, which again, I get for a branding perspective and like execs and all that. It makes sense. He's the best, probably the best to ever do it too. But I just love Wade Barrett's fit on Raw. He fits the Raw mentality, I think, a little better. And you get to reunite him with Gunther. I love the way he says certain guys' names. And having him on the show with Imperium, I think, makes Imperium better. Same way that Samantha makes Imperium better by being their ring announcer. So I did love that this week, and I think it's something that's going to continue to help Raw going forward.
Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else here that I didn't actually state that I thought was a lot of fun. I am interested in the JD McDonough kind of thing,
Yes.
but that was, it is what it is. I don't know if that was exactly what we want to talk about, but it's nice to see him. I don't know if he was sitting on an apple crate in that promo, but he looked a lot taller than I remember. And I was sitting to myself going,
him and Finn are pretty close to the same size.
Yeah.
Finn's pretty short too, but I did like it because I like that Finn kind of uses him as a device with Damian Priest to kind of pretty much the reason why I really like that backstage segment. Obviously, of Rhea trying to play Peacekeeper again, but the way I looked at JD is like, this is what Finn wants to say to Damian. But Finn is still kind of playing, for the most part, playing nice. And JD's allowed to say this stuff for him. What I also did like is that Rhea being like, you're not Judgment Day, this is business, whatever. But then JD takes out Sami Zayn, continuing to benefit the Judgment Day. So, I mean, I think the obvious thing we're looking at here is when they do break away Damian Priest, JD's going to slot in as the fourth member, and I think it makes sense. But I do like the way that they're kind of slow playing it and Finn using it, being like, look, I've known this guy for 20 years. I trust what he says. And him kind of being that wedge between him and Damian, even though we saw during the match, they're acting cool again and this and that. It's nice little pieces of like that we didn't always get in the previous regime of WWE, that we get a lot more detail with stuff like this with Triple H.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to talk about, or we should get heaty?
Yeah, no, we can transition off this too, because again, I love the way that Raw started to a certain point, because anytime Cody and Seth get near each other,
he has a boner.
Yeah, and I love that it was the opposite of last time. Last time it was Cody interrupting Seth. I love that this time it was Cody talking about like, I'm ready for the next challenge, whatever it is. And it was Seth, who is the champion, coming out being like, you're clearly the top guy and I want to face the best competition. But then obviously we know what happens after that is Judgment Day comes out, does their thing, and Dom gets booed, which we love, of course. And it would set up a 6-man tag, which is heat. But obviously, like we just mentioned, Sammy didn't make it, and a certain someone else got slotted in.
So I'm going to go off on a tangent here because, I'm actually bigger on Big Bronson Reed than I am Shinsuke Nakamura at this point. And then he got a big dub, and that's fine. And then, of course, the minute he got added to that match, I went, oh, fuck. And then I'm like, please be wrong. And then, I wasn't wrong at the end of Raw, where Shinsuke turns on them afterwards, and everybody's like, what the hell? To me, this is what I think. You cannot save Shinsuke Nakamura at this point to make him a credible opponent for the championship. And by not having a credible opponent for this championship that needs credible people to make Seth Rollins or this championship better, you are just making it a foregone conclusion to me. Okay, Seth Rollins is winning this fucking feud. I'm not even going to fucking care. There's nothing you can do to entice me to watch this fucking thing. I have to watch it for this program to talk to you guys, but I am not interested. It's a foregone conclusion at Payback. Seth Rollins fucking wins. Let's get it over with. Damian Priest may cash in, that's fine. But when Shinsuke Nakamura is involved, I don't give a fuck. And there's nothing you can do about it because I was interested. He was my favorite in New Japan. He was my favorite in NXT. Got to the main roster, they fumbled him, whatever, and they've had ups and downs with him. But then this shit is just like he's tired of people getting in his way and talking about this, that, and the other thing. I'm done. It's a moot point. It doesn't matter. And Seth Rollins, like we talked about, not a steady incline with this championship. So I'm not in. I'm not in on it at all. It's a fucking snooze fest for me.
Yeah, they kind of did, like you said, tip their hand when he got the clean as a sheet win against Bronson Reed, which I never love seeing stuff like that. But I was like, okay, they're doing something with Shin. Then when he slotted in the main event, I was like, so we're not getting Seth Cody. We're going to get Cody versus Judgment Day in some way, shape, or form. And we're going to have a little one-off here with Seth and Shin. Look it. Could it be a good match? Probably. But it's just at the end of the day, like you said, it's not a main event level thing. And if I'm looking, when you're looking at the next few PLEs and Roman Reigns isn't there, Seth, this is your chance to main event. Seth and Shin ain't main event shit. So yeah, I agree. We're in the heat, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. We are in the heat.
I don't know if we made that clear.
It doesn't matter. Moving on. I'm just going to go to really quick on this shit because I want to make sure we get to the rest of it. Cameron Grimes, jobber alert for Austin Theory. That was a fucking throwaway bullshit nonsense that I just was like, what the fuck? Then, of course, what I thought was bizarre, and I guess this is just fucking for no reason. Not Shotzi. Zelina beats Io in a match that was already in progress. That was a fucking waste of my goddamn time. And Zelina won, so that was like, I guess if you're Money in the Bank, might as well tip the scales anyway. It's fine.
Oh, yeah, whatever. She was winning the next night. So
yeah, well, whatever. It's fucking whatever. But then you get to the rest of Raw, and it's like, okay, like, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of things. So in theory, and this is where I'm sure Guthrie's going to have a fucking conniption, but in theory, Becky Lynch, Zoe Stark, and Shayna Baszler on paper makes sense. It does a decent job. But for some reason, when Becky Lynch is talking, I'm sitting here going, I feel like she's trying very hard and she's doing the best she can, but it's still not resonating with me as a viewer. And then, of course, and I think, and this is unfair to judge Zoe Stark, but if you're, again, like you said, if you're on this level, you're going to have a microscope against, all this stuff. She hasn't found her voice yet. She hasn't found that like confidence when she's talking yet. So I can't deal with it. And then Shayna was like, oh, you call me the baddest woman on the planet, or you're the baddest woman. And it's just like, neither of these women sounded confident when they were doing anything. And it was just like, on top of the fact that Trish hasn't fucking been there, on top of the fact that Shayna won that shitty fucking match, it just felt like it let the fucking air out of the room. Now, the match itself, fucking good. There's nothing problematic with the match. But again,
it was boring as fuck.
I cared more about Becky drinking and making fun of the Triple H fucking spew than anything else. I didn't give a shit about the match, which I should have, but I didn't, because again, it didn't capture my attention.
It was a boring match. Whatever. It's just like Zoe and Shayna objectively are mostly boring. And it just was one of those, it could have been a nice match. I don't know. I zoned out. This didn't have my attention at all. I mean, maybe we have are they hinting at a Shayna Becky feud once we get through Trish? I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Lita comes back next week and we have Ho-Hum, Glory, whatever. I don't know. This was probably the low point of the show for me.
Anything else you want to get into some hopes?
Well, this will transition to my hopes, so I'll just bring it up here. Those fucking women's tag team titles are fucking cursed. I'm gonna call it the curse of the Banks Bimbo. The Banks Bimo. I can't even fucking say it. I could write it. The Banks Bino. You know what I'm going for here.
The Banks Bino curse?
Banks Bimo.
Why don't you just call it something easy for you to say? I have a hard
time. Banks
time.
Bimo, because that's Curse of the Bambino, you dumb fuck. I'm trying to say it. I can't say it. It's hard.
What if you called her a Bam Bimbo?
No, because that's fucking disrespectful as hell to women, Nestlemania.
Okay.
Grow up. Banks Bino.
You can't even say it.
The Curse of the Banks Bino. I can say it now. I finally get it. These things are fucking cursed. Sonya Deville tore her ACL. So those things now, once again, we're going to have to figure out what to do. And I'm going to get to that in a moment. But I thought it was kind of shitty that they buried this announcement right before the main event with like a 2-second full screen. That's the respect you're showing to the women's tag titles, and Sonya Deville. Shame on you, WWE. It should have been a bigger deal. There should have been people going to Adam Pearce all night, throwing their hats in the ring to get an opportunity here. Chelsea Green should have been there talking to Adam Pearce about how she's going to be the champion on her own. I thought this was probably one of my bigger heats from Raw, is the fact that they didn't take advantage of this. But I mean, that's just part of the curse. But glorious, you're my only hope. Nestlemania, the state of the tag divisions, men's and women's, in WWE on the main roster is a fucking disaster. Kevin Owens injured. Sami Zayn has an elbow coming out of his elbow, injured. Sonya Deville injured. So what does that give us? No tag team champions on the main roster. So here's my challenge. Roman Reigns, he took his ball and went to his island and he's playing catch with his kiddos. Good for him. He ain't going to be there. That leaves a gaping hole where it is time to take advantage and give opportunity to tag team wrestling in WWE. I want tournaments. I want number one contenders. I want everything. I want the whole shebang for both the men's and women's titles. I want every single tag team employed by WWE on the main roster to have an opportunity to get there and win those championships. Maybe they split the men's titles. I don't know, but we got to find out what's going on with Sami and KO if they're out for a while. But either way, we need tag team wrestling in WWE. Tag team wrestling is amazing. Right now, you have a gaping hole. Figure it out. But the women's, they for sure need something. You called up those 2 tag teams from NXT. You haven't used them much the last couple weeks. It's time to start featuring them and figuring this shit out, because you got to build some divisions here. It's too important. So that's my hope. Hashtag JC knows. Hashtag JC hopes come true. You make me choose some winners? Sure, why not? I'll go with Indy and Candice as an upset. They were on TV on Monday. They'd be a nice little surprise here to be women's tag team champions. A good, fun team. We love them. And on the men's side, I mean, the Street Profits are acting all heelish. If you split them, they'd make sense on SmackDown. I look over to Raw and, well, the obvious one is a team that just came back this week. The New Day could be involved, but, you know, Judgment Day having more gold would never upset me either. So we'll see.
This is honestly, to add to what you just said, this is a perfect opportunity if both of the, Sami and KO can't wrestle, to split the fucking titles.
Yeah.
Without anybody getting him and Han about it, you can just split them and nobody would be the wiser. It's perfectly okay. My hope is to kind of stay in the tag team division a little bit, but I saw this on Saturday and it got me rock hard. I want very much, it's not going to happen right away, but I think it needs to happen, the oddball tag team of The Miz and Grayson Waller. Now, if done correctly, we know that The Miz is a shitty fucking babyface. So let's keep him a heel, right? But I think over time, people will grow to appreciate Grayson Waller. And if we ever need a split here, a babyface Waller, just go with me on this. If he doesn't change his
Dude,
ways,
he's so good as a heel.
No, I know. But here's the thing: don't change a goddamn thing. Just like LA Knight, don't change a goddamn thing. I think this could work. Like if you have, I mean, it's not gonna happen right away, but the Miz and Waller going back and forth, having like the Miz Waller effect TV or something, like combining that. They can find so many entertaining ways to keep these guys going together. I would love to see that. It might be a year from now, might be 2 years from now, but that needs to happen because it's almost like looking into a mirror. And I am salivating at the idea of like them being a tag team and then turning on each other and then just seeing where it goes. Because the Miz it basically made the blueprint on how to be successful even with an L. And Grayson Waller is kind of in that same ilk. And I think this could work just so well because I think Grayson Waller is going to be a big fucking deal. And if you really want to be a big deal in wrestling, you've got to be a good babyface and you've got to be a decent babyface and a heel at the same time sometimes when you go back and forth. So I'm curious to see where this goes. I would love to see just the entertainment value go up through both of these two. So that's my hope.
I mean, these are two of my favorites. I love them. We've obviously Waller has been big on the Miz, especially on Twitter, for years. So that's a big thing. But side note here, while you were doing that, for those of you in the video, you probably saw me making faces. I just got this text. Jack ? Do you want to learn to swim together tomorrow? I'm Evelyn.
Wait, what?
It's the text I just received. Evelyn looking for Jack and wants to learn to swim together tomorrow.
You should respond back by saying, yes, I would. Skinny dipping ?
Yeah, I don't know what this means, but I mean, I'm interested,
I'm just saying.
That was weird. It was a little weird because you see the number you don't recognize come up on your phone.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, there's probably some fucking like polling service. And nope, it's Evelyn looking for Jack, wanting to learn to swim together tomorrow. But yeah, that's just a side note. We're gonna go to the comeback though. Jack and Evelyn aren't getting my comeback, but Rob, Dan, playing the game. Hey, he's back on TV.
Hold on. Since you did this twice, I have to correct you because my boy Adam, other Adam, who's a ring announcer for all these independent wrestling shows and has a great podcast. He said, you screwed it up last time. I have to correct you. You said playing the game. It's one of a kind is the lyric.
I always do play in the game.
No, but it's one of a kind. One of a kind.
Yeah, I do play in the game.
That's not the lyric. That's not the lyric.
When have I ever done the correct lyrics to a song?
Oh my God.
On this program. Never. So shame on you. Shame on you, Nestlemania.
I just wanted you to, you're just bad at lyrics.
No. Through the darkness, I will rise. Through the darkness. I do whatever the fuck I want, baby, because I am Rob Van Dam, or as I would say, I'm J fucking C. I do what I want. I play the game how I want. I'm one of a kind, whatever you want to say. But he's getting my comeback. He's facing Jungle Boy Jackass Perry. I guess he's just Jack Perry now on Wednesday for the FTW title. The internet tried to tell us that this was going to happen at Wembley. Maybe it still will, but the dirt fucking nerds are on as always. So don't fucking read them. Don't fucking tell me what you read in a dirt sheet, because if you do that, I'm going to smack you in the fucking face because they don't know shit. But I'm excited for this. I love RVD. I know you love RVD.
I do.
He's the fucking man. I don't care how old he is. I don't care how high he is. I just know that motherfucker entertains me 24/7. And if anyone can make me give a shit about Jack Perry, it's RVD.
I'll tell you this much. RVD has always been the Nestle, like he has been the Nestle guy from like 96 from now. Like he is one of my top 5 all time. So when I saw him, I went, I gotta fucking buy that shirt from Chalkline. Like I was just like, I gotta fucking get that tank top. It might be $60 for a stupid tank top, but it fucking looked great. And then he's out there looking fucking like $1 million. And then I start spit taking when they call him Jungle Jerk. And I was just like, this is like, how do you, between Jerry Lynn and RVD, I was like, this is great. Like, I did not expect to like this.
Me either.
I'm concerned that they're going to keep lining up these ECW guys for Jack to knock off until we get to All In. But I don't know if that makes, like, Taz certainly ain't going to come out of retirement for it. So,
oh God,
you know what I mean? Like,
if anyone would do that, they'd do it. Oh no.
Here's the thing. I don't think, like, to me, this is why I don't want to shit on AEW, but I feel like RVD would have been the last guy, not the first guy, at least in my opinion. Because, like, if it's the Sandman, easy for Jack to get. If it's probably not going to be Sabu Bass, after what he did last time. But, like, you never know. It's just like the ECW guys, in my opinion, that still go aren't very good to begin with, and RVD is like the pinnacle of ECW, in my opinion. Like they're not going to pull out Bully Ray, I would imagine, because he's Bully Ray. But like, how many more active ECW guys can you throw out there that, or it could be the M Boss? It's probably Hook, right? At All In, you would think.
I would think that would be the rematch. Yeah.
It's odd to me. It's very,
this just feels like a random pit stop because we talked about last week, the Jerry Lynn thing felt so fucking random, but whatever.
I mean, if it's Taz, again, another Nestle Hall of Fame dude, I fucking love Taz. But like, if he's going to come back to choke him out, like, what does that do for Jack Perry, right?
No, if he comes back, I want fucking Jungle Jackass to kick the shit out of him.
Okay.
Taz is an old man. The young guy should get the better end. Then his son should have to come save him. That's how I'd book it.
Okay. Fine. Fair enough. Would you like to get to the big old finish?
No, I'd like to hear your comeback.
My comeback?
Yeah.
What did I say I was going to give? I can't remember. I can't remember. No.
I don't listen when you talk, so.
Well, neither does anybody else in this program.
You could give it to the New Day.
I think I was going to give it to, oh, fuck. What was I going to give it to? I'm sorry. I totally like blanked. My brain is like.
You can never give me shit for not having a hope again.
No, I know. I was going to give it to JD, but we already did it. I'm going to give it. I think I was going to give it to the New Day. So the only reason I say that is because the New Day are a great tag team, and it's nice to see them back in it. And again, when I was listening to it on Monday, they reminded me of all of their accolades. They reminded me of how special they are with the Usos. So like automatically with just 1 or 2 lines, you automatically bump them back up to better than most right away. And like you just said with the tag team division, it's so difficult to keep tag teams relevant in general. And the New Day are easily just plug and play no matter where you go. So it was nice to see Kofi come back from injury. We've always talked about on this program how Xavier Woods is kind of criminally underappreciated in general. So I'll be curious to see what happens. I would like very much to see kind of an evolution with the New Day, because I do wonder if we're going to see something new with them every once in a while. No pun intended, because I feel like they've been riding on their coattails because they've been so successful. They haven't had to really do the next level of the New Day.
I just choked on water again.
You got to worry about that, bud.
I don't know if there is a new iteration of them because
Jesus.
Fuck.
You all right?
No.
All right. Well, anyway, we should go to the big old finish.
Whew. Yeah,
big old finish. Here we got a lot to talk about, I assume, with AEW Dynamite
We'll
Collision.
start with SmackDown though, because there's
Jesus.
U.S. title, Theory Santos, talk.
Okay, so if it's not, I would just imagine that Santos has to win this one because they've made a really bad idea of like Theory being kind of a shitty champion. And then Michael Cole, when Michael Cole shits on somebody on commentary, I have this internal feeling that like, okay, they're shitting on him. Somebody's telling him to shit on him, because I don't feel like Michael Cole is just going to have creative license to shit on somebody in commentary. And they shit on Top Dollar, and where's Top Dollar? Down the fucking bottom of my shoe. When, you know, like the same thing with fucking Theory. When they shit on him, I'm like, this fucking kid, Jesus Christ, he's trying. But yeah, he's been a piss poor United States champion after, Jesus, probably WrestleMania, right? Like, I guess that was the last time I remember anything he did.
I think Theory retains.
Really? Oh, because they're holding up for LA Knight?
It may be, but I also think that I don't know. I just have a weird suspicion about something with Santos and Ray, and Santos getting angry after a loss and kind of like turning on Ray. I don't know. I don't know if they're doing that yet, but I just have a feeling. The other match is probably your match of the year: AJ Styles versus Karrion Kross.
I can't believe this is fucking happening again. Third time, maybe more than 2 minutes this time. I don't know. I'm not interested in Karrion Kross. And we've always teetered back and forth about AJ Styles in the WWE sometimes. And I know, like, you made a great point the other day about him being a part-timer.
That's what.
But I just feel like what a waste of fucking talent AJ Styles is on SmackDown. So I'm just not interested.
On Monday Night Raw, we have Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus, like we've talked about. I don't know. Something weird's happening here. I think they're going to be given a big spot, and I think that something's happening, whether it's Lita or something, but I don't know. I smell something here.
Well, they're not going to do anything good. There's no stipulation, so it is what it is.
You just got to, Nestle, you got to get over your fucking hair.
So now I realize my comeback was supposed to go to Shotzi.
Yes, it was. That was
so fucking tired. Oh my God. That's what happens when you're a dad. Anyway, whatever. It's beside the point. But like, I just love stipulations in general when they're fun. And then it's just, this one screams like it should have a fucking stipulation, and it doesn't. And the fucking, if just a tattoo thing would be hilarious to me, but it's not going to happen.
It is not. On Dynamite, things that are happening. The 201st episode, I believe. We have the Hardys versus the Young Bucks, because I want to see that again. We already talked about Jack Perry and RVD for the FTW title. We have the Lucha Bros versus the Blackpool Combat Club.
Lucha Bros?
I said Lucha Bros.
It sounded like you said Lutra.
It's possible. We also have my match of the night, Sheeta versus Anna Jay. And then we have a JAS mandatory meeting. Yeah, I mean, this is shaping up to look like another waste of my time. But I mean, Sheeta, Anna Jay, you have my attention. And I am curious to see what happens with this JAS bullshit, even though we kind of know where it's going, and I hate it.
So the theory would be that Jericho doesn't pick the Don Callis thing, and then, of course, Will Ospreay will come after him at some point. But going back a second to Sheeta winning last week, that should have been my comeback. It wasn't, because it reset the women's division. Thank Christ, with all this fucking negative Nancy stuff coming out here. We're not going to talk about that stuff. Go type in Lufisto and you'll find out whatever you need to find out. But Sheeta has always been somebody that you and I have watched and loved. A criminally underrated lady. Again, her reign was kind of cut short and kind of like, was it pandemic-y only? I can't remember.
She was pretty much reigned during the pandemic, yeah.
But she was fucking awesome. And
she's great. She always delivers in ring. I think she's a very interesting character, but she's someone, obviously, there's a little bit of a language barrier, but she's not someone that lets that affect her.
Right. But I think going forward, there's enough women that they can actually put against her that could be credible, because Sheeta's really fucking good. right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think she can bring the best out of these women. So that's why I'm positive that this will be a good move for everybody.
Yep.
Anything else?
On Collision, we have stuff. We have CMFTR versus the House of Black for the trios titles, because even though the Acclaimed were I don't know why these are for the titles. This is so fucking random. I'm loving everything House of Black on Saturdays. I'm loving FTR. CM Punk, there are things I like. There are things I don't like. But yeah, that's a thing. We have the Acclaimed in action. They are very upset that Billy Gunn or Daddy Ass has given them the boots. I still think that's going to lead to him coming back and then winning the trios titles at some point. And then we have a women's tag team match between Mercedes Martinez and Diamante taking on Willow Nightingale and Chris Statlander, who I keep forgetting exists and is a champion.
Again, all these women are fucking talented as hell, but like no rhyme or reason for me to give a shit about it. Like, anything on this show this week specifically, like I'm not interested in on Collision so far. So that's just me. And of course, watching Ricky Starks beat up Ricky Steamboat was just like, what the fuck are we doing here? So I was just, when I saw that, I went like, and his punches fucking missed his fucking head. And I'm just like, wrong.
This was probably my least favorite episode of Collision.
I was like, this is falling. Like when I watched it, I went, this thing is falling apart so fucking quickly. And I'm just I'm not a fan of Ricky Starks being a heel like we talked about, but CM Punk being fucking a babyface or being whatever he considers himself to be, like John Cena or whatever, I'm done. I'm just
rematch with the Samoan Snore. I literally I was looking when we saw the quote unquote list of potential opponents. I was like, dude, Jay White, just do it. Like the guy needs it. He's ready for a solos run. Like you signed him as this one of the biggest free agent signings ever. And it's like, you featured him as a tag team guy. Him with the guns and juice is super entertaining, but it's like, for this guy to evolve to where people think he can, like, put him in a big spot against Punk. Do it. But no, we get a fucking rematch against Samoa Joe. I just don't give a fuck.
I'm not interested in anything right now in terms of All In because I don't know. I mean, they made the comment that FTR and the Young
FTR
Bucks
called out the books on Saturday, so that's happening. So look, it's the pay-per-view sold to me with MJF, Adam Cole, and FTR and the Bucks. Will Ospreay's going to be on it. It's great. The fact that it's against Chris Jericho, not so great. The rest of it, whatever. But the two headliners, at least, like they have me. But it's like, yeah, it would be nice if they filled out the rest of the little card.
Before we leave, I just wanted to have a really quick moment and ask you this. Billy Ray on his podcast said something that I think bears, repeating. They had a chance here for the All In pay-per-view to not name any fucking matches because they already sold out they already sold it out. But having people tuning in to see what was going to happen, because you never fucking know, what the element of surprise would have been really cool. At least I thought that was a cool little, caveat, but I get they probably want to sell pay-per-view buys for this too.
I like storylines, and you can't have not announced
calling somebody out isn't a storyline. There's like everybody's just calling each other out.
I mean, we have the MJF Adam Cole, which is one of the best storylines in wrestling. That's the headliner. They've done a great job.
Right. But the FTR thing was like, hey, you want to have fucking wrestle? Hey,
it's that one. That one's one of those where you don't have to, because it's literally like it's the trilogy. It's the payoff. Like there doesn't need to be a story there. The CM Punk thing, you could have had a story because CM Punk's been rubbing up against Jay White and those guys, but they're like, oh, let's just have Samoa Joe be like, let's have a boring rematch. It's going to be really shitty. Yeah. Let's live like it's 20 years ago. Nope.
All right. On that note, anything else, or we should get the fuck out of here?
Let's get out of here because it's getting pretty hot in here, baby.
It is. On that note, thank you for listening and watching the Jobberknocker podcast. We will be back next week with more Jobberknockery.
Yeah.